Well, a whole lifetime has happened since the last time I recorded a podcast episode. I'm sitting at my dining room table in my apartment in Mexico City, in Condesa, where I have moved my entire life and my daughters to here. And it has been the most emotional, mental, physical, administrative, heavy move and shift of my life. I don't know if you can hear the traffic. It's right outside my window. You're probably going to hear it from now on because this is where I'm going to record. And I have moved before a lot. I lived in London with my ex-husband, with Pi's dad. And for 2 years, I've solo traveled for a year and a half of my life prior to meeting my ex-husband. It's how I met him. I've moved cities, I've moved states, I've moved continents. But this one was so much bigger. It truly has been the one that has felt the most guttural, ancestral, intuitive. And as a result, those decisions are also the hardest ones because everything in your comfort zone is like, why are you doing this? And I want to talk to you about why I moved to Mexico City, and not just specifically around this decision. It is almost a part 2 to the episode that I dropped on April 17th, which is how I have made huge, expansive identity shifting decisions over the last decade. As someone who has done all the things, I've quit the job to solo travel. I've quit the entire career to start the business. I have started over from being pregnant and on food stamps after divorce and heartbreak. I've rebuilt more times than most people, but this time, this move was not a rebuilding after heartbreak. It wasn't a things are so hard, so I need to start over. It was actually a move that came from the happiest season of my life, where I was sitting in for all accounts, the picture of success. I was living in San Francisco, my hometown, in a condo that everybody that came to my house was like, wow, and would take out their phone and go out to my balcony and film and take pictures. And it was this 180-degree view of San Francisco. And we were in the highest part of San Francisco. We had the most stunning sunrises and sunsets, and we could see the fireworks, and it was a beautiful neighborhood. And I was one of the only people of color who lived there. And I drove a 2024 Tesla Model Y with white leather seats. And my daughter went to a school where it was mostly 2-parent households and people with tech salaries who would take their kids to France in the summer. And it was a public school, but there's just a lot of money in San Francisco. And I just remember when we moved back to San Francisco from Portland, where we kind of rode out the pandemic, she and I just remember being I'm going to show everyone that I can give my daughter this lifestyle without a husband. It was very much almost like my FU era around I don't know if you've ever been, you probably have, if you've been in this, if you're listening to my podcast, especially if you're first gen, you very much want to show that you can do it. Maybe your FU was the job that you got, or the car that you got, or the vacations that you took, so that when you go around family parties, you're the successful one, and everybody sees how successful you are and how worldly you are and all the things. And I think that I have always had, for a long time, I felt like I had a chip on my shoulder for how much further along, quote unquote, I would be if I had chosen the right partner. So this is all me just totally telling you where I was mentally, because you may see yourself in this, right? You may be doing something right now or holding on to something right now that isn't even because you want it. It's because you're still in the era of wanting to show that you can do it, and it isn't even what you want anymore. Or maybe it was what you wanted, but it isn't anymore. And so for me, my FU was giving my daughter a 2-parent tech salary lifestyle where we took off a month every summer. I've been taking off a month every summer for the last 4 or 5 years in a row. And we always go somewhere beautiful, in beautiful hotels. We go to different trips. We go to different countries. And I've been able to do that through my business. Literally, I rebuilt from nothing. When I started my business, I was living in my parents' house because I said, I was broken pregnant when I was pregnant with my daughter because of my divorce and just many things that I won't get into. But I just remember being I am going to show everybody that I'm going to be able to create this myself. It's not even going to be I'm going to leave my career. I'm going to be more successful than ever. And I think I don't regret that time. I think that what it showed me was yes, I can do anything, but do I want to? And is this still my version of success? And so I would say a little over a year and a half ago, I started feeling in San Francisco okay, I don't see myself here. Like, well, what's going to happen now? Like, we're here. Unless I'm going to drop 2 million on a house, like I'm not going to buy a house here. If my family didn't live here, would I choose to live here? And the answer was no. Like, I love the Bay and everything. And I don't know, maybe one day in the future we may go back. I don't know. But I was like, this isn't the hometown that I chose. Like this, I'm a daughter of immigrants. This is where my family immigrated to. And that's why it's my hometown. And I love it because it's familiar. But I'm like, I just don't know in this stage of my life that I would choose to live here. And I started to feel the tug that I had felt before. And it's like, damn it. Okay, like, wait, do we really need to leave? Is this like my trauma response always telling me that I need to pick up and go? Because for a while it kind of was. It's like every time that I moved, it was to like rebuild or to fix or to run away or whatever. And this time it didn't feel like that. It's like I felt this tremendous sadness because I adored our home. It was the most beautiful home. Every single piece of furniture. Like when I sat in that house, I was like, every single piece of furniture in this house, everything I bought through my business. I am surrounded with the fact that I can do it. Every trip, every piece of clothing, every single thing. I was like, Mariela, you have shown yourself that you can do it. Do you still want this? When you think about your future, when you think about the home that you have journaled about for years and years and years, it's not here. So what are you going to do? And so a little over a year and a half ago, I started to get this tug and I was like, I know we're going to have to move. As much as I love where we live, as much as like I hit these big milestones living in that house, like I hit, 500K, I hit 1 million a lifetime. And I had some of my biggest launches and I started coming to Mexico more. I started coming to Mexico City. And Mexico City started to become almost like a place that I would, almost like the way that you would return to a well to get water. Like that's how I felt when I came to Mexico City. It all started with like a girls' trip that I took in February 2022 with my friends, Liz and Erica. And we came here and I just remember like crying at seeing the Mexican flag for the first time because I'd never like seen it in El Zócalo, like just a giant Mexican flag. Hearing Spanish spoken everywhere, this sense of familiarity from a country that I frankly did not grow up going to, even though I am Mexican. And then it started to become that I started visiting more often. My friend Liz moved here. She, was dating someone. Eventually they got engaged and got married and it became like a second home. And then it would be like me, Liz and Erica would get together and come to Mexico City. We've had this group chat since the beginning of 2022 called Chingonas de CDMX. And so we would see it like CDMX became almost like a second home. I remember coming here during one of the trips and I like bought my first designer bag. It was like a YSL bag. I had never, and they gave us champagne and it was like, I felt like I'd come here and it was like, oh my God, I can imagine living here. Like I feel so abundant. And then I had my first mastermind retreat here in February 2024 for reclamation. There were 17 clients. Like we had the most amazing time. And I felt like, damn, like this city makes me feel so expansive, yet so at home. And I think it just started this feeling of like, I remember last summer even visiting Liz and I just was so sad. And sometimes what's interesting is like the decision that you need to make makes you feel sad. It's not that it always makes you feel excited. For me, I felt so much grief. Like I wanted to cry. Like I would be walking around Parque Mexico and I was like, my daughter and I would be on a Sunday, like doing a little art thing. They always set up these little art stations in the park. And I just remember like almost trying on, what would it be like if we could walk to this park on a Sunday and like do this art together as mother and daughter? What would it be like if us walking down the tree-lined streets of Condesa was like our everyday life? And I just remember being like, but I can't do that because I can't take her away from my parents, who adore her, who pick her up every day from school, who are retired, who have always been parents or grandparents, who have always been caretakers. Like I can't do that to them. I can't move here because I worked so hard to refurnish my house from nothing, to rebuild everything. Like I don't know if I can bring everything with me. And it was very like why I can't, but I just remember feeling so sad and like coming back home and just having this longing for being here. It almost makes me emotional thinking about it because I knew back then, I knew last summer when I was here that I was meant to be here. It defied a lot of logic. And so I just kept researching. I kept looking at like, where could I move? Where would I live? And I also knew that where I was living, the rent was going up and up and up. And it was like thousands of dollars. Like, you really couldn't find anything in my neighborhood for like under like $6,000 a month. And I just was like, well, pretty soon they're going to raise it again. And then, we're going to have to be ready to go. So finally, what wound up happening was like Q1 was great. Q1 was amazing. I had like 2 launches, one of my biggest quarters, brought in tons of clients. It was one of my biggest quarters. And then my daughter and I went away for spring break. We went to San Diego. We went to, like the zoo and it was just beautiful. And I just remember at the time being like, oh my gosh, I used to live in San Diego. And I was like, Pi, what would you think if we lived here? Because I've been talking to her about it for over a year. And she was like, yeah, I like it here. And I was like, okay. And there was one day where she and I were just in a cafe. We were playing like ping pong or something. And I remember having that feeling again of like trying on another life of what it could be like. And I just remember pausing and being like, Mariela, what do you actually want? So instead of choosing a city, like what is it that you are longing for? What are you missing? And that's also how I've made these big decisions in the past. So I said, okay, what I'm missing that I'm not getting in San Francisco is a slower pace of life, sunshine. I want a feeling of third spaces. Like a third space is where the community can just get together and just exist. Not in a restaurant where you have to buy shit, not at a shopping mall, not at any of those things, just existing and being outside. Like more of like that chill culture. San Diego is very much has a lot of that culture, and I used to live there as well. And so I think I was like, but I can't imagine living somewhere that I haven't lived before because it's too much of a gamble. And so I was like, okay, I want that, but I want Latino culture. So I was like, okay, Latino culture, Mexican food. Okay, San Diego has that. So does Mexico City. But I kept being like, but I can't live in Mexico City because that's like, if that's just too much. That's just too much. So I was toying between like Oakland, Berkeley, which is East Bay, San Diego, and Mexico City. And then I was like, and I just want to feel at peace. I do want a lower cost of living, but I mostly just want to feel like grounded, ease, at peace, sunshine, community, third spaces, spending time outdoors. And yeah. And I was like, okay, so I just don't know what it is. So I came back from that spring break sad again. Because I was like, I just feel like I'm supposed to move. I feel like I'm supposed to move. I literally talked about it on my stories after this trip. And just the ease that I'd never felt in San Francisco. I never felt ease. I felt hustle. And I think that's why I hit so many milestones there, because like if you light a fire under my ass as a single mom and eldest daughter, I'm going to fucking do it. Like if you tell me I have to make a certain amount of money, like whatever, like to my own detriment, I will figure it out. And so I came back and I kicked off like CO1 on like the 7th of April. That same day, I made an appointment with a shaman that I had years ago. So I made the appointment with the shaman on the 7th for 2 days later on the 9th. The date in between on the 8th is when I got the email from my landlord saying, hey, we're going to have to put the rent up by another $1,000. And I remember when I got the email, I was like, oh my God, Mariela, you manifested that. Like you knew you needed to leave. And I remember saying to myself on the 7th, like, I wish this were easier because this feels so hard. This feels selfish. This feels almost reckless. Like, why would you upend a life that looks so good on paper and a school that your daughter, my daughter loves and being in the same city as my parents, but it just like wasn't what I wanted. So when I got the rent increase, I almost was relieved. I remember I had like back-to-back client calls that day and I got it and I had to just compartmentalize it and focus on my clients. And then later I was like, okay, so we're moving. So now it's a matter of where. And then I had the session with the shaman the following day. And anyhow, the guidance confirmed what I knew all along, which is that I needed to be here. And it's really scary when you don't know why, but you know that you need to go. But I have had this experience before. And I think that if you've had practice with making, identity shifting decisions, big scary decisions, it becomes a little less scary because it's like, okay, you know what? I've been down this road before. Essentially almost receiving an invitation. And then the invitation says you need to move to this place or you need to do this thing or you need to quit your job or you need to solo travel or you need to whatever. I've done this so many times. You need to file for divorce. You need to whatever. And I've done this many times. But with this one, it felt like, okay, but why? But what about this? But what about that? And I wasn't getting answers to any of those. It was just, you need to go. I'm calling you. When you get there, you will receive further instructions. It's like, that is the ancestral guidance. Like, we just need you to be here in your homeland. And so then it was decided. Basically, after the session with the shaman, I was like, okay, so we're going to Mexico City. And then I just let myself just feel the grief of saying goodbye to this life that I worked so hard to show people that I could build. I think anytime I talk about showing people, I fight back tears a little bit. Because I think there's still a part of me that is holding on to like the FU to be like, but I did it though. See, I didn't need a husband. I didn't need a tech salary. Quitting my job, quitting my career was the right thing. I've made over $1 million. Like, see, I could do it. But it almost is like this other stronger, more grounded sense of self, of sense of me that doesn't need to prove anymore because I already have. I've proven it to myself. I've proven it to everybody that I can do anything, but I just want to feel a sense of peace that I haven't been able to feel for a really long time. And the thing about capitalism and living in the most expensive city in the United States of San Francisco is that the only way that you can truly, truly feel peace in those environments is by making tons of money, like so much money, right? Like, to be honest. So when we talk about, have you ever you've ever heard people say, if you want to enjoy motherhood, have money. If you want to enjoy life, like have privilege, have money, have backups, have a two income household, like have that shit. Cause you actually do need that. That helps you enjoy your life more. And anybody that says otherwise probably has privilege and doesn't even realize it. It's a hell of a lot easier to enjoy your life when you got money. But when you need to make, 5 figures a month just to pay the bills and pay the team and all the things, it's like at that point, success doesn't feel so successful. A multiple 6-figure business feels like, yeah, obviously I have to make multiple 6 figures just to be like, okay. And I'm just like, well, what the hell am I working so hard for? Like now my version of success is stacking my investment account, right? Which hit 6 figures last year. And my daughter has one as well. Is stacking my investment account. My definition of success is my nervous system feeling calm, is how much I get to enjoy my time in the relationships that I've built with people, being able to afford someone to clean my house and cook for me every week. Like we have that now. It's been so hard. I've had so much guilt, in particular around taking my daughter away from my parents. That's the phrase that just kept coming up. And I think around abandoning a version of success that it's what I always wanted. And I think it's like what happens is you work so hard to evolve and then that version of you makes a different decision. And I really had to sit with like, is this running away? Is it what? And I was like, no, I actually am just so happy with this life. And it was so hard to tear those physical things away from me. Like, especially the day that I sold my car, I was like, oh my God, I love this car so much. Like, I don't love giving money to Elon Musk. So that's great that I don't anymore. But so there's so much. So I want to switch gears now to say, like, recap a couple of things that I shared, which is that the most significant decisions that you are going to make in your life typically do not feel exciting. They feel full of grief, full of what about this? What about that? They also feel full of like, do I want to let this thing go because like, it's not bad. It's success. It's whatever, and I felt that way when I have quit jobs, when I left my career, when I've done a lot of things. And the thing is that as we evolve, as we grow, as we climb up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, our desires shift. It no longer is about like surviving. It becomes more about like the things that we put on the back burner that we now have space to think about. And I guess the way that I see this move is almost like a return home to like, what does Mariela want versus what looks like success to other people or what feels logical. And I worked so hard for that. And I think I have to realize sometimes like you work too hard to keep defining your success by other people's terms or even by a past version of you in their terms. So if there's anything that feels like that is it for you, I would love to hear about it because that's what we sign ourselves up for, to be honest, when we choose to heal, when we choose to expand, when we choose to live life in our growth edges versus our comfort zone. Those are the things that start to come knocking. So it's like, don't be surprised when you sign yourself up to listen to your intuition, to expand yourself, to take the risks, that you start to get guidance. And then that guidance feels very inconvenient. And it feels very scary, but you need to trust that the version of yourself that you have created can with it and can figure it out, because you will never have all of the answers in the moment. You're not going to have the full plan laid out. You may just get what I get, which is the invitation, which is, hey, we're inviting you to do this step. You will receive further instruction. So with that being said, if you are ever considering a move like this, it was so funny because I was thinking like, why was this so much harder than when I moved to London? But when I moved to London, I did not have a child. I was moving in with my ex-husband. I just got to bring like luggages and whatever. And I got a job and I just did normal things. This time it was like, what do I sell? What do I give away? What do I put into storage? What do I ship? And what do I put in our checked bags? Like so much of that. And it's like your whole life, like, like your life is bigger than your stuff, but your stuff is a big part of your life, right? It's a lot of what you consider to be familiar. And so for the entire Q2, like as soon as I got that notification, I knew we were leaving. As much as I tried, I was like, okay, I want to like share my journey and I want to do all these things. But as I was attempting to share the journey, and I shared the day that I handed in my 30-day notice on my apartment to say that I was moving out. I shared different things, right? But I just felt so tender about it. And also I had to have a lot of conversations with people to say that I was leaving. And anytime I would share little bits about we might be moving or whatever in my stories, I would hear from someone being like, wait, what? And it made me realize like, this is not the vibe. Like, this is not something for me to televise like live for everybody about what I'm doing, because number one, I'm still processing my emotions about it. Number two, I'm still talking to friends and family and people that I love about it. And I don't want for them to find out on Instagram about a decision that I just made. And I was making decisions so quickly at the time that I was like, I actually, I need this to be sacred. And as somebody who has lived a very pretty public life, I would say, since I started my business, like there were years where you knew every single thing that I was doing every single day. Like people would joke that they're like, we know exactly what Mariela's doing because you post everything on Instagram stories. And it was because at the time, like I didn't have a social life. It was the pandemic and I'm a single mom at home and whatever. And it's like my socializing was being on Instagram stories. And now I've really had to redefine what is for social media ever, what is for social media now, and what is like versus like what is mine. And so I really just I chose to just be present with the logistics, the emotion, the grief of the move. I missed creating. I still do. This is, like I said, my first podcast episode in 3 months, but with the logistics, finding schools, interviewing schools, finding apartments, figuring out like storage, figuring out like, am I going to sell the car? Am I going to store the car? Like I have never in my life had to have so many decisions. Like it is the wildest project plan. I used to be a marketing project manager and it would be the craziest spreadsheet of decisions that I had to make. So like literally, thankfully, I had a full roster of clients that I booked out in Q1 because I know how to turn the tap on. This is like part of like, okay, some people preach consistency, and for others like me, what saved me is like, I know how to turn the tap on when it comes to sales and bringing in clients. And then I just had my full roster of clients. And what I did was like, I served my clients well. And I, redefined reclamation a little bit. And then I managed this move and I was a mom. And leading up to the last few days, I took the 4 weeks off in the summer that I always have, but this time instead of me going to some hotel or whatever with my kid and traveling, I packaged up our lives in boxes. I sold not all my furniture, but like some key pieces of furniture that I didn't, I was like, I could part with it. I moved the rest of it into a storage unit and moved the rest of it here. And I've now been here for 3 weeks as of yesterday. And I could tell you this week is the first week that's actually felt like you can let your guard down. You have arrived, you're safe. Because for the entire 4 weeks that I was off and like the 3 months prior to that, prepping for it, I felt so ungrounded because like when you know that you need to move and like you don't know where you're going to live and like all the things, like for me, I'm very, very, very like affected by that. And so I just felt like I was in survival mode like that whole time, just being like, just figure out where you're going to live. Like, is Adriana going to be okay when you guys move? Like, is she going to like her school? Like, what's going to happen? What if you don't like your apartment? Like, you can't go see it in person. I had 2 of my friends come see it who already live here. And it was such a huge leap of faith. And I was like, you're not going to know all the answers to this, but you just have to trust that you've had enough practice in taking leaps that you will be fine. And so coming back to work this week and coming back to coach my clients, I've had a few realizations. Number one, I never regretted this move. Like I never, even in all of the grief and all of the sadness and all of the problems that I had to solve, I never once was like, maybe I shouldn't move to Mexico City. So that tells you something about when you really practice your decision-making, like authority, like you're listening to your intuition. When you are really tapped in, you generally like, you won't doubt the decision, even as you feel the emotions. I think secondly is it made me realize I really missed coaching and I really missed creating. So taking myself away from it for a bit to just shift our lives here, I'm like, damn, I really picked the right career because I so missed when I hopped on like category of 1 earlier this week and I coached them and I've seen like 3 private clients this week. I just was like, wow, this is like the best job. Like I miss them so much. I have the most amazing clients. I love this work. Okay, great. This is a confirmation because like, listen, I don't commit to things. I don't just stick to, obviously you know this, right? Like I have no problem ending things and starting things and whatever. So everything in my life, everything that I do, the people in my life, all the things, I am choosing actively all the time because I don't stay with things or decisions or people or chapters for comfort. I have no problem. And so I was like, okay, miss my clients. I miss creating. I have so many stories to tell. But I needed to just live it first. I needed to live it and I needed to process it first. And I will say that, especially when you are a creator for your business, you can feel like you owe your whole life to people or like, damn, this would make good content. And I'm sure you've all had similar instances like this where you're living something and you're just like, oh, I need to film this. I need to document this. I need to post this. Like, listen, you can document it and you don't need to share it right now. I documented lots of things and I haven't shared them and I don't know if I will, or I don't know what I will share. You don't owe your real time, like most vulnerable things to anybody. And you get to decide like what stories you tell, when you tell them. And I have to talk to my clients about this as a storytelling, coach, because people, when they're going through a hard time, sometimes feel like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do? And so that's another thing that I realized is like, I really missed creating and I missed coaching my clients. It also taught me like, I am insanely productive, because as much as I was like, but you're not producing and you're not marketing and you're not doing these things, I was like, yeah, but I had to choose not to, because otherwise everything else wouldn't have happened. Like I had to be full-time project manager. There were, towards the end of the move, it was like 40 or 50 hours a week I was spending on this move. And I was telling myself, I had this story for the longest time that like, oh, you're ADHD, like you're all over the place and you're whatever. And I'm like, no, I actually live an insanely productive, I do so much. And I would like to not have to do that all the time, right? I had to be insanely productive to like make it in San Francisco and all the things. And now I'm just like, okay, that's not in question, but like, what do you want to direct your productivity to? I need some time to just exist, right? And so I think I probably would have ended up in another burnout cycle had I stayed in San Francisco, because I did go through burnout there. And so it taught me that I'm insanely productive. And I think it also taught me that like, the more you trust, the more practice you get trusting your intuition, ancestral guidance, whatever feels deeper than logical, the easier and the more likely you will continue to trust it moving forward, because that guidance feels kind of batshit crazy most of the time. But like the most significant shifts you're ever going to make are off the other side of those. And so I think that when it happens again, you're like, oh, I know this. I've had this feeling before. And you get to kind of analyze it and be like, okay, like, where is this coming from? Is this fear? Does this feel flighty? Does this feel like running, or does this feel grounded? Is there like an anxiousness around it? Or is there almost like a sad acceptance around it? Does this feel like it's done? Or does this feel like you're going back and forth? Like, how does it feel? And that's a type of wisdom that, to be honest, I think especially as daughters of immigrants, like if you're a daughter of immigrants, we all had it. And then it was taken from us through many systems. And now we are working really hard to redevelop that relationship with that inner guidance. And I think in many ways, like this is also adding to how I coach my clients, because I've always been someone who's like, I don't coach clients to create a dependency on me. I don't coach in a way that externalizes your wisdom to say like, I have to follow this exact framework and I'm not going to think for myself. And like like all the students are following the exact steps. It's like, I coach clients to become the version of themselves that can hear themselves, know themselves, trust themselves, love themselves, and have that wisdom on top of guidance that I am giving them, not in replacement of. And I'm walking the walk here. So like, I think I've just in this year become an even deeper version of the embodiment of that. And I'm excited for how that's going to unfold in my coaching and in the programs that I am continuing to offer and bringing back. Like Reclamation is a big part of that. Reclamation Mastermind is my mastermind for clients who are wanting to build multiple six-figure businesses off of thought leadership. And so much of that is like the person that is running the business, not just the steps that you're doing. And these are for people who, live really full lives like mine. And so now I'm looking forward to just having the space here to think, to feel, to be, and just be like, okay, now what's next? Like, what have you been doing in the past just because you felt like you should continue doing it versus what are the yeses you would give all over again? So that's where I'm at. It's been beautiful. I wouldn't change it. But I for sure have not felt all the feelings about this move yet. And I don't think that I've gotten the second piece of guidance, like where I told you guys at the beginning of the episode that moving here, it was like, okay, you need to move here and then await further instruction. So I'm awaiting further instruction from myself, my intuition, my ancestors, which has all been what has happened, the most significant changes of my life. But I'm also not in a rush to receive that guidance. I think that it will come as I continue to give myself the space. And I'm really relearning a different relationship with productivity and with success now that I'm spending like more time outside, more time connecting, more time being. By the way, I don't have my citizenship. Like I don't have my Mexican passport or anything. That's something that I'm going to do while I'm here. So I'm literally just like here as a tourist. I need to leave before 6 months. So I'm going to go back in Christmas and for Pi's birthday. But before then I should have my Mexican passport and then I'll get Pi's. I was referred to a service that a few friends of mine that live here have done, and they said it was really easy. So as long as you have a parent that was born in Mexico, like that's all you need to claim your Mexican citizenship by birthright. But yes, my DMs are open for any thoughts, reflections, if this brought up anything for you in terms of any decisions you're contemplating. I've always been that person that my clients go to, not just for business, but really for somebody to hold them and their identity in their life. And so this is my DMs are open for that, and I'd love to hear. And like I said, I'm sure I'll have more about this, but I've had so many like folks and clients just being like, how is it? I want to hear everything about what made you do it. And this was more about why, more than the logistics of it, even though that was such a freaking pain in the ass. 3 of my shipments got sent back to the United States because they didn't clear customs. Like, you just have to be prepared for stuff to go wrong. But again, it is me practicing the art of letting go. Because I was like, what was in those shipments that you needed? And I like, do you really need them? Just, okay, buy new shit. Like, it's okay. You know, thankfully I can do that. I know I'm very privileged, but it's just, it also was just like, dude, so many things went wrong with this move. So many things went well, but so many little things where I was just like, I'm just so fucking tired of problem solving. Like, I just want to exist. I just want to be. And I think I'm there now. Like, the major problems have been solved. You know, I'm still waiting for some checks for like selling my car and like all the things, you know, but overall, like I can just exist now. My daughter's in summer camp. Yes, the last 2 days and today she's in summer camp at her Montessori to kind of like test out how she likes it. I'm going to talk to the teachers and see how she's doing. She loves it though. I already hear her singing like little songs in Spanish and it's so cute. I just feel like life is good. We're just tentatively like into just the first few days of like, okay, problem solving is done. We live here, we're fine. Problems have happened, but I just feel like my tolerance for problem solving is so high now that it takes a lot to kind of fuck me up, to be honest. Like, I'm just like, you know what? It's fine. I've dealt with a lot of stuff. It's going to be fine. I've really expanded my capacity for handling a lot of things, but I hope I don't have to push that. I hope I don't have to like live in that high tolerance anymore. I am looking forward to days that I am just practicing being bored. I still feel the sense of rush. Like even when I'm out, I was talking to like my friends about it here, where we're just like, I still feel like I need to fill every moment of my time with like being productive. But Mexico's really good with that because people are just enjoying their lives. There's people doing like hobbies in the middle of the day. They're like skateboarding or riding bikes or they're dancing. And I'm just like, oh wow, like I forgot to live. Like, I don't even have hobbies, y'all. I don't. So come along with me as I share. I'm learning how to exist. Like I'm learning how to exist in what feels like it might be the first chapter of my life, not completely driven by survival mode and making as much money as I can. Because I've already shown myself that I can do that. And my parents are coming to Mexico City. My dad has not been back to Mexico since he immigrated as a child, I believe in 1971. And he would have never come back. We tried to get him to come back. My mom came 2 years ago when I had my reclamation mastermind retreat. We kind of planned like a family trip for right after. So my sisters, my brother-in-law came, and my mom came, but my dad did not come. And to be able to witness my dad experience his homeland in a completely different capacity with me as a resident and his granddaughter with privilege, it's like they don't even know Mexico, really. If you're a daughter of immigrants, for the most part, your parent experienced El Rancho, which maybe had running water, maybe did not. My dad's rancho still has like dirt roads. I went to see it last year and visit it. They never even saw like the ocean. They were poor. That's why many families from Mexico immigrated to the United States to like literally to survive. And I get to witness my dad in 1 week experience Mexico City. And to see my daughter and him reunite because they're besties. And, you know, I'm so happy to be able to host them in my house for 2 weeks and experience Mexico through their eyes. And I hope it's really healing for them to know that like their homeland is still theirs, even though they didn't have a choice of whether to immigrate or not. When they were children, like this is still their home, and it's their home because it's Mexico, and it's their home because it's my home, and they always can come back. And like my eyes are just welling up as I am thinking about this, that like there's already so much beauty that this move has created. You know, to be able for it to be a home for my family, you know, I have one of my best friends coming at the end of September. My sister and brother-in-law will hopefully come in October.
And it's just so beautiful. I heard this reel. They said, what if they left so we could return and that we can come back and be safe and have privilege and have options and have freedom and be able to enjoy our homeland in the way that our parents couldn't and that our grandparents couldn't. So stay tuned. There'll be more to share. Thank you for just listening in. This was like coming back to cycle breakers and moneymakers. Like, this is literally what I'm doing. I'm being a cycle breaker and a moneymaker. And this move represented the first one that was not from rebuilding. It was not from survival mode. It was the first that really felt like truly a homecoming to myself. And like, what is my definition of success now? And what would it look like if I didn't have to hustle? What would it look like for me to make a decision that wasn't based on surviving? So more to come on that. All right. Talk to you soon, y'all.